important for the bishop to encourage and support both clergy and laity to cultivate their prayer lives? If so, how would you do that?
Okay, thank you. My personal prayer life is very, very important to me. It's something I do every single day. I get up before anyone else in our household. I get up about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I have about an hour for prayer time. That is my Sabbath time. And for me, what I'm doing is I'm resting my way back into relationship with God and with those around me. The daily office opens with the words, "Lord, open our lips and our mouth shall proclaim your praise." So my discipline is the first thing I do, first word, is going to be something toward God. And then the rest follows. And I'm not saying that as any kind of like, I'm holy or anything like that. It sets everything in the right place. So my tradition is to do some kind of morning prayer, version of that, looking over the lectionary, the readings, have some time in silence, centering prayer, surrendering to the presence of God so I can be nourished by that now abiding presence because I'm in a better, I'm awake as well. And then I always journal what happened from this prayer time. I don't know about you, but my memory is a revisionist memory. I usually am not remembering things as they're occurring very well. So it's nice for me to journal about, hey, this is a prayer concern right now, or here's how I felt God met me in this particular moment, and then to go back over that and say, wow, look at, what am I complaining about? God's been all over my life, and so it's helpful to put it all in perspective as it's happening. What I would want to say to our clergy, you got to do this. I'll give you an example. We have 3 services on a Sunday morning, 8, 9, and 10. Between the 9 and the 10 o'clock service, I have to go and pray. I have to go and pray. I have been just pulled in for whatever reason, different directions, and I need to just find that center again. I would say for clergy, there are so many things that are coming at you and being pulled from you. If you don't have that center anchor, you really will not be operating from the greater presence of God, which called you into this vocation to begin with. And you need that to support you in this ministry. We can't do this without the presence. We cannot do this without the presence of God. What I think is interesting is that we're in a moment in the church where the presiding bishop has put forward this way of love, these spiritual practices. I would love to see them become more a part of our diocesan life, and that would be another way that I would want to encourage our clergy and our lay people to find some kind of rhythm that works for them. So where might this be inhabited in our current diocesan structure? Like, where would you put this prayer discipline? I think it belongs with the Commission on Ministry. They are our spiritual directors. They are our discerners. They're listening to the way of the Spirit. I would love to challenge them and say, hey, help us in this practice of love. Be that annoying presence to say, do this for your own sake. And so we would join in this together, whether it's publicity, whether it's sharing stories, what that might be, but to engage this opportunity now to join the rest of the church in the practices of the way of love. Okay, thank you.
Question number 2. Our current policy in the diocese is full inclusion of our LGBT members, including ordination and clergy officiating at same-gender marriages, if they wish to do so. What is your position on these issues, and what would your directives to the diocese be on this issue?
Okay, so I would say just up front, my position is fully supportive. I have been throughout my ministry. It has not been an issue for me. I think it's critical for us to support love when it comes together in a committed way, no matter what the genders are that are coming together in that relationship, same-sex or heterosexual. I think that when this was first coming about, I heard phrases like, well, this is going to ruin the institution of marriage. Maybe you've heard the same thing. I started to preside at same-sex blessings 12 years ago. And my experience about that is it renewed the sacrament of marriage. There were so many hurdles that same-sex couples had to overcome, including among their own friends. Why would you want to go to the church, who for 2,000 years has said, this isn't right? And yet, because of faithfulness, their commitment to the church, their place in the body of Christ, they came forward and really wanted to have the church's blessing, the community's blessing, and God's blessing on this relationship. I didn't find that same level of integrity with a lot of heterosexual couples when I did their marriage. It's like, I don't know, God doesn't necessarily want to do this, or maybe sort of, it was very different. So I was very encouraged and have been very outspoken about how I think same-sex marriages have really brought a strong sense of renewal to the sacrament of marriage. So the sacrament is one part of it. The other part that I think we all need to sort of share in is the spiritual practice of marriage. And that's where we can encourage one another. Marriage is one thing, but what happens when the next day, and the next day after that, and the next day after that, right? It's when we turn to our partner and say, yes, I'm with you today in this. Or you've had a hard moment and you still turn and you say, I'm with you in this. There's a moment in usually relationships, it's like 7-8 years, when you look at each other and you're like, I love you, but where it happened? What happened to the groove? What happened to that, way of when we were? And it takes about a year of conversation and commitment, and no one can will it to happen. And somehow God because God brought you together, God continues to bring you together. You find this new depth and way of being together and an additional strength that looking back, you now have confidence that you can endure so much more. If you've ever been in a place where you're celebrating someone's 30th anniversary, right? And you ask somebody, 30 years we've been married. Suddenly, others who have been married for 30 years, they do this. I know what that is. I know what that is because I've been through that cycle, that maturation, the deepening of the relationship several different times. And it was worth every moment of that. I want to celebrate as the bishop all the different ways that love happens in a committed way. To support it from the church's standpoint, to bless what God is doing, but to encourage one another through our relationships to keep saying yes to those who are so important in our life, to learn and support each other in this gift that we've been given. Sometimes I call it the laboratory of love, right? We're formed in this place. Okay. Oh, you need that back, right, for the next person.
This is question number 3. Do you need a drink?
I'm good.
Good.
What are you offering? Maybe I was too quick on that answer.
So, the last General Convention encouraged the trial use of alternative liturgies. Our diocese intended to stick with liturgies from the Book of Common Prayer and enriching our worship, with a few alternative additions for certain seasons. What is your opinion on the use of alternative liturgies within a diocese? Do you see liturgical renewal as important in the life of our diocese? And what would your directions be with regard to alternatives?
Okay. In 3 minutes, right? Yes. All right. So, would want to first say that I'm very much supportive of trial use liturgies in our diocese. There's a phrase, lex orandi, lex credende, praying shapes believing. And so we are formed by the language that we use. I know when we have created Rite 3 services at St. Andrews, that there's a tension that you're naturally in. The tension is how to be culturally relevant or connecting to the warmth of the culture using familiar language and respecting the dignity and beauty of our liturgical tradition. And that is just the tension. That's the tension. At St. Andrews, we have a Rite 3 service we do. It's a family service. Some of the parts have been reordered. It's a half-hour long. It's for families with kids under 8. It includes writing your prayers. So for those that need some doodling time while they're listening to the lesson, it incorporates a different learning style. They use confession shells and they put that forward, and someone pours water over that while the absolution's mentioned or stated. The Eucharist is a tortilla, and they participate in bringing that forward. There's no adult message, but the blessing for the adults is to be family in church, and that really is a blessing for them. What I found in offering that service is kids are curious. They love to stand around the altar. They bring this excitement. They don't always bring the same manners that we do. That's okay, you know. But at age 1.5, they learn the order of the service. At 1.5, they know the shell is coming, and when they get the shell, they wait and they come up on their own. Like the parents are 30 people behind them. They know when the bread is being served, and they come forward. At 1.5, they learn this. We often think that little ones, need to be in a nursery, but they're formed in our liturgies. And so I think our liturgical renewal that's going on is important. My understanding is we are still maintaining the same prayer book tradition, having that as an option. But we're offering different ways for us to bring words and awareness to the moment of our common worship. I think it's critical that we find new ways to rename the intention that brings us together, seasonally or pastorally. One of the liturgies that I loved that just came forward from the Book of Occasional Services that was put out is a renaming service. It is for those who have decided I need to be called by a different name because the gender I was born with is not the gender I feel like I am. And so we actually have a liturgical service to honor the name change, going back to Abraham and Sarah, Abram and Sarai, Simon and Peter, and the importance of what God was doing in their life and God is doing in the life of this particular person. So I'm really pleased to see what has happened. I think it's important that we hold on to the tradition that we call what would be our core center, but have this beauty sort of dance around and bring some renewal to the particularities of our liturgical tradition. Good.
Next question. How would you support, empower, and care for ECR's vocational deacons and their varied ministries?
All right, varied ministries. Great. So I'm a relational person, so I would want to be in relationship with them. I understand there's an annual retreat. I certainly would want to continue to do that. I would want to get to know everyone's story and what brought them to whatever their particular vocation is. So that's the first thing I would do as your bishop. What's the story? What's the calling? How did this get forward? Why is this important to you? So I know exactly how I can celebrate and support them and the work that they're doing. That's the first thing. Second thing I would want to say is we aspire to become the church that does not yet exist here in El Camino Real. I don't know if we know what that is, but it sounds curious, right? Let's be the church that doesn't, I don't know, but let's do it. It's something else, it's something more. So the way I'm thinking about that question is, what do those who are not in the church needing to see in order to become part of the church? I think deacons are the way in which we are going to meet and answer that question. My understanding of the diaconate, it is an embodiment of the humility and servant ministry of Jesus. And they are called to dwell in the needs of the world. If you've been around somebody who's anxious or in pain or struggling with something, it engenders a certain emotional response in you. You want to rescue them. You want to take care of that need. You want to solve that because, God forbid, I become like that, right? So deacons have to bring this self-awareness to the need of the world in which they are trying to be present in. And that very discipline is what the church needs to be doing as well. Those outside the church, millennial generation, they're looking for authenticity, humility, right? They're looking for real practice. Like, does this matter? Are you making sacrifice in what you're doing? Like, show me then I'll trust it, then I'll be curious about the community that sent this person out. Peter Marty, who writes for the Christian Century, said, wholeness is not discovered in seeing our faith life as a self-project, but wholeness is discovered when we finally put that down and start to follow the one who teaches us to be more generous to others than to ourselves. And I think that's what the role of deacons does. So by holding this up as what I think is the model for our diocese, I hope others would be called to this ministry, this vocational ministry, but also that the deacons of our diocese would feel supported in what they're doing. We have misunderstood historically the role of deacons. We refer to them as sub-priests, and bishops as super-priests. It's just wrong. We have 4 different orders of ministry. I think it's the deacons who are going to lead the way into this next generation of church. So I would want to hold them up as the example.
This is question number 5. What do you believe have been your major accomplishments in life and in the leadership in the church? What skills and abilities have most helped you in these accomplishments?
Okay, biggest major compliments, let's just get them out of the way. Marriage and Livia. We'll just get those out of the way. Right? It's truly, those are life purpose things. That's really important. We were on a clergy retreat recently with Rob Boyle, and he asked us an important question. He said, outside of your work or family life, what would you do? What would you be doing with your time? And so for me, I would be mountain biking on a trail, or I'd be running on a trail. And then he said, think about your answer, because it probably tells you something about what you are called to do in terms of the purpose of your life. So I thought about that. Well, what brings me out on my mountain bike? My mountain bike is to have this kind of experience of union between heart, mind, and body, that sort of synergy that's there, but to accomplish some kind of greater purpose, right? So I need to climb that mountain, or I need to run that distance that's there. When I thought about that in terms of my own purpose in my life, I have been called to places in the church to do exactly that, to create unity for a greater purpose. At Transfiguration, I followed somebody who died very suddenly of cancer. He was a psychotherapist and had that model of ministry in the parish, so he had very strong relationships with the individuals, but the individuals didn't have relationships with each other. So as soon as he died, that center fell out of the community. And in walked Channing. What y'all doing here? So what we did was we began to love each other and to talk about what we're called to do. And we came to just a simple understanding that we want to be the church where you are, come as you are, whatever you are, come here. You are welcome to be here. As soon as we began to articulate that, there was a common sense of purpose. We knew our purpose and our role in God's unfolding story. So we had fun together. We brought out snow for Advent Snow Day. We got a couple tons of snow for the kids in the neighborhood to be able to play on our hillside. We started a rotating shelter program called the Interfaith Hospitality Network, now Home and Hope, that has 33 congregations involved in that. We grew to a level where we could afford a full-time second priest on staff. That was the sense of what happened from this common unity that we felt for a greater purpose. At St. Andrews, I felt called to go there because of both the church and the school. But when I arrived, even though there was structure in place, there was a lot of animosity and tension between our church and the school. So I tried to be a vulnerable leader, and hold up the vision that we are much stronger together than we are apart. I have probably said that more than 1,000 times. If you've ever been an administrator in some place you're trying to reach people out to a greater vision, it is death by 1,000 cuts, isn't it? Right? There's like this small things are what get involved in creating the problem. So overscheduling or issues about not trusting each other. Gradually over the years, through some leadership changes, deepening our understanding of the Episcopal identity of the school, today we now share staff. The chaplain in the lower school is the same Christian ed person. The IT department of the school takes care of our IT needs. We're jointly involved in a capital campaign project with no delineation as to who has to raise what money. The school just this year put together a brand new marketing plan in which they advertised, not St. Andrew's Episcopal School, but St. Andrew's Episcopal Church and School. And what was funny was what the little symbol between church and school. It's a little St. Andrew's saltire cross, right? But the way we talk about it is that when church and school come together, they multiply each other. I knew I had finally achieved what I wanted. We are much stronger together than we are apart. I hope as your bishop, if I'm called here, to create that same sense of unity for a greater purpose together, that we would discover together who we are in God's unfolding story.
Thank you. Last but not least, what are your thoughts about the Episcopal Church as the Episcopal branch of the Jesus movement? How have you embraced this new understanding of evangelism? Are you familiar with the Reclaiming Jesus statement? And do you think it has a place in our diocese?
Great. Love the Jesus movement, gets us out of institutional thinking. It's all about joining something that has been going on for many, many years. I love the way our presiding bishop talks about that. And I'm passionate about evangelism, which is the heart of this question. So let me tell you about a couple things that I've done in my own ministry around evangelism. At Transfiguration, I was frustrated because we weren't growing. And so I was trying to figure out how we could grow in this particular moment. And so I said, well, maybe I need to take responsibility for my need to see the church grow. So I said, what's the way we're going to do that? Well, we can put up signs and things like that. I'm going to do something more. I'm going to go evangelize in the parks. The scariest thing I've ever thought I would ever do. Okay, so here's my deal. If I show up at church, and it was the day to do this, I was wearing shorts and a really comfortable shirt, and so I had to follow through on that. So when it came to be 11:30, when I would go to the park and sort of try to do this really awkward thing, I had to follow through because I was wearing something different, right? So I show up at the park. Here's my strategy. I walk up to somebody and I said, "Hello, my name is Janine Smith. I'm the rector of a church right up the hill. We're trying to grow in our family ministry. Do you have any ideas of what we could do?" And their answer is, "Well, what do you have going on? Let me tell you what's going on." And I got some good ideas along the way. We grew by 73 people that year. Wow. Yeah, right? So something happened there. St. Andrews, 2 years ago, we had a transition in our leadership. There was a lot of tension in families about how to talk about national politics. And I said in the Christmas Eve sermon, I think what we need hope. We need to receive the gift of hope. How do we understand how we can give that gift of hope to one another? Now I know if I spend time with you, I give you my time and attention, you'll feel more hopeful about tomorrow. But if I also say to you, I believe in what you're doing, you will also feel more hopeful about tomorrow. So I had the congregation turn to each other and I said, I want you to turn to each other and say, I believe in you. And so they did. And then I said, I don't think they believed you. Say it again. I believe in you. So we had the congregation do this with each other. Out of that sermon came this IBIY, I believe in you, button campaign. So we printed 1,500 of these buttons. And parishioners took them and distributed them around the area. They came back and began to tell me these stories. So one woman was with her husband in a restaurant. Next to them on a bar was a woman who had just gotten engaged. Joyous moment in her life. And they heard about this and find that her husband wasn't there, her fiance wasn't there. They asked why, and he said, well, he's out with his boyfriends. And so, defeated, this is terrible, right? Hold on. Ran to her car, got this and said, look, I don't know what your decision will be, but I want you to know I believe that you will make the right decision. They gave her the button. Kathy Crow, who's a chaplain at San Jose State, takes a whole host of these and to students just before exam time, gives them an IBIY button to say, I believe in you, as you're taking these exams. She says they hold it to their heart. It's like receiving communion. I think what we want to do in evangelism is we want to give the gift of hope and love. We don't want to change someone's mind. We want to invite them into a greater awareness of God in their life. So I would want to see us do different things like that to make it more of an outreach of our Episcopal nature, to share our faith, and to see what happened as a result of it, the growth that would happen. Okay?
Thank you. So we don't have enough time for questions from the audience, but blessings to you.
Thank you,
And
Karen.
I'll take back the
Microphone. All right. Thank you. Thank you all. You guys have been great. Appreciate it. Enjoy the night.